Hello and welcome. My name's Steve Beckles-Ebusua, the speaker with the orange tie. My son got me this tie, by the way, so thank you very much indeed, son. And welcome to the Orange Room. Those that don't know anything about me, I'm a motivational speaker. I go to schools, colleges, universities and companies around the UK, Europe and in the States. Now, obviously, that has all changed. Now, as I said last week, I'm not going to go on about what we know regarding lockdown because I want us to be focused on what we can control. So for me, these sessions are really about how you can make a massive difference for yourself through my learning. So let's just kind of rewind a little bit. I started these sessions in March, beginning of the lockdown, and what I decided to do is come up with motivational stuff just to help you not just get through but get from it as well. But since then I've developed myself. A guy called Dr. Wayne Dyer famously said, for things to change you must change. And I just said to myself, do you know what, I love being a motivational speaker. I'm inspired. I think it makes a massive difference in people's lives, but also I think I need to develop myself. So I'm training to become a therapist, a cognitive behavioural therapist, and I've got a passion for it, and I'll tell you more about that very shortly. But first of all, I must say a massive thank you to everyone that gave me the birthday wishes and messages on Facebook. It's been phenomenal. There's still messages coming through, so thank you so much, and it was an amazing day. I really enjoyed it. And what I often do as I get older, I often look back and look at what I've learned up to this point. So I never kind of think to myself, oh, I'm getting to this age, I'm getting to this age. I'm thinking, well, what have I learned at the age I'm now, and what am I going to be learning next year, for my next birthday? So for me, it's always a positive thing, and I'm just very blessed to be in the place I am. I think loads of people we're probably aware of have been affected by various medical issues and stuff, so I just feel very blessed to be here and to be able to give this message. So let's move on. Well, as you know, I love doing the motivational stuff, but as I said earlier, I'm training to become a cognitive behavioural therapist. Now, what is that? A cognitive behavioural therapist looks at a person's thoughts and then their feelings and then their behaviour, because with cognitive behaviour, it looks at how you think, because then it affects the way you feel and the way you act. And like I said last week, I thought I should have been doing this ages ago, because I do this all the time. I'm always talking about beliefs and how you should drive yourself, etc., etc. So training to be a therapist is hard work. I will not deny that. I've been really in amongst the work at the moment and researching, but loving and having a passion. So what am I doing? I want to share my journey with you, the best to my ability. And what happens, it obviously helps me to learn as well, and I can share it with you with tips and techniques. Now, this is really important because I want you to start realizing that all change starts with you. So I know a lot of people are thinking, well, what can I do about this? It starts with you. So I really want you to start thinking about what changes can you control, which leads me on to my first topic I spoke about, which was 2 weeks ago. It was to do with internal and external locus of control. All of these videos are on my YouTube. So if you go to Orange Online Learning on YouTube, all of these videos are there. But I spoke about it 2 weeks ago, internal, external, local control, all right? Now, whenever you have a client, which is my scenario where I'm doing one-to-ones, I am working with the client, getting them to realize that all the stuff out there, they can't actually control. But what you can control is in here. So I spoke about that 2 weeks ago, tips and techniques on internal locus of control. Guys, Google all of this stuff, because this stuff I'm presently studying, I'm finding it fascinating, and it is amazing. So you can easily find out more about this. I want to hopefully just give you these little nuggets and you can move on with them. This next week, or last week, I spoke about the importance of listening. Yeah, and at the moment I'm learning about the importance of understanding your client, and it's amazing. I mean, when you really go down to the levels, you realize the importance of, I have been a coach for over 9 years now, but this for me is another level. I'm loving it, but it is another level. And I spoke about listening, 3 forms of listening: subjective, objective and active. Yeah, subjective is perhaps just listening as someone speaking, but you're not kind of focused, but you are listening to them. Objective is like when you are kind of listening, where maybe this is what you're doing with me at the moment, yeah? But active is when everything goes down and you're listening everything to what I'm saying and perhaps reflecting it back to me, all right? So that's what I spoke about last week. Now, this week, good stuff. Now, you know, I always have my props, and here's my latest prop, my strap line. If you see along the bottom, it said, tissues for the tears without empathy. Now, I suppose I just had the tissue box because obviously when you're crying, you had the tissues, etc. But I want you to think about empathy and how empathetic are you? There's 3 levels of empathy. Now, this is amazing. I was kind of aware of it, but it was like, wow, blew my mind. So let's move these cushions out of the way and let's get going. So first of all, what I want to do, I want to talk about a lady called Brené Brown. Oh, by the way, you could just write down this stuff. This is stuff that I've researched for my assignment. Still on assignment 2 because there's a lot to go. But Brené Brown, she is an amazing, she's an American lady, and she talks about the difference between empathy and sympathy. Before I also go on, I want to give massive thanks out to Aman and to Sika as well, and to Claudia, who are in the field of psychology and gave me amazing compliments. Also to Faye as well. So thank you so much for your compliments. And yes, I will keep going. So sympathy and empathy. What are they and what's the difference? Now, if you think of what sympathy is about, and it's a really, really great description here, it drives a disconnection when you sympathize with someone, because you're not actually, you understand the situation, but you don't feel it. Yeah? Empathy, massive difference. Empathy is when you feel that person's pain. You understand that person's pain and you feel it. There's empathy. Now, you're probably familiar with that, but did you know there were 3 types of empathy? Okay, let me give you the first type. The first one is cognitive empathy. All right, cognitive empathy. Cognitive empathy is classic in the workplace. God forbid someone in your family passes away, you contact work and you tell them about your loss, your bereavement. They will have an understanding, hopefully, yeah, but then they all want to know when you're coming back to work, or has that work been done, or have you dealt with those emails? Does that make sense? Cognitive empathy is a bit of an oxymoron. Yeah, oxymoron being an opposite of what it actually is. So cognitive is that kind of logical side of thinking things, but then empathy is that kind of feeling side, and the two actually conflict. So with cognitive empathy in the workplace, you see a lot of it, and it can come across as being quite cold. All right, so that's cognitive empathy. So that's the first type of empathy we can give off. The next one is emotional empathy. How many times have you seen someone running and then they trip up and they bump their toe and you go, oh gosh, yeah? Or men, for example, guys gets hit in his private part, you go, oh, yeah? Now that is looking at the emotional side. So that's emotional empathy. It's when you actually become that person's pain as well. So you're with them and you're becoming that pain with them, and you're by their side. But do you know the biggest problem of emotional empathy is what happens is when I'm being empathetic to you about, for example, someone leaving you, for example. Now, if that's happened in my life, the danger is that my emotion then comes out as well as their emotion, which they've got originally. So what happens is that their emotion gets negated because it's then all about you. Do you see? So emotional empathy is very dangerous when you have perhaps had that challenge and you haven't dealt with it yourself. Now, classic emotional empathy as well is with your son or daughter. My daughter's 8 years of age, and when she drops something or whatever, I'm feeling her pain. I'm there, I'm connected, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is emotional empathy. All right, so you have cognitive empathy, which you're more likely going to see in the workplace. It can be quite clinical, where you have the cognitive side, that kind of logistical, well, you know, what's going to happen next. But then you have the emotional side. But it's kind of clashing, okay? Then you have your emotional empathy, where you've got to be careful, because if you've had a split very similar to that person, all of a sudden the issue is about you rather than that actual person who you're meant to be empathizing with. Do you understand? Yeah. The next one is, and this is really important, this is the one kind of, I think it just connects everything up, and it's compassionate empathy. Compassionate. It's a mixture of the two. And compassionate empathy is when you're able to find your middle ground, and when you help that person, you still know your center ground. Does that make sense? So you don't get lost in their challenge per se. You are in your central ground. Also, what's so good about it is that it's known for you taking action. So a classic example of compassionate empathy is when, for example, you put your arm around them. Does that make sense? So you put in an action with compassionate empathy. Or maybe you make a phone call for them that perhaps they don't want to make, and you do that for them. Do you see? So compassionate empathy tends to connect itself with an action being taken. Now, this was in my assignment that I'm presently doing, and I found it absolutely fascinating. So I'm hoping now you're thinking, well, when I'm being empathetic to someone, which one of the three am I doing? Am I just kind of saying, yeah, oh, you know, it's terrible, but you know, when you're going to get it done, can't you get this done? Yeah, you know, the cognitive side. Are you emotionally empathetic? Are you maybe putting your challenges ahead of theirs? When you're putting your arm around them, it's actually about you. Or are you hitting that middle ground, that compassionate empathy, where you are actually helping them to take action? Now, those three things I found fascinating. It really helped me to look at how I am being empathetic to people. Now, let's now look at sympathetic. Now, sympathetic, as I kind of mentioned earlier, what it does, it drives a disconnection. Empathy is when you fuel a connection, is when you're vulnerable, and you allow yourself to be vulnerable because you're connecting with that person's emotion as well as yours. You're becoming part of perhaps their challenge. Now, here's some tips, and this is great. Brené Brown did this, and it's important for those people who believe they're empathetic when really they're being sympathetic. Let me just listen, classic one. Do you say when someone's got a problem, well, at least, does that make sense? So you've listened to their challenge, their problem, but then you've come up with, well, at least. Okay, let me give you three examples that Brené Brown did. She was talking to a lady and she overheard a conversation, and the lady said she had a miscarriage. And her friend said to her, well, at least you can have children. Can you see how you are not being empathetic? You're being sympathetic. You're not actually looking at the issue. Another example, she said that a woman was complaining about her marriage. Her marriage is falling apart. The lady said, well, at least you've got a marriage. Can you see the tone here? How many of you have done that? On numerous occasions, try to find a, well, at least. And what Brené Brown talks about is avoiding doing that. She said it's classic, and I saw the line, I actually wrote it down, it's so good. She said, if someone has a challenge, this is a good thing to say, and I love it. I wrote it down. It's like, it must be difficult what you're going through. I'm here for you. Can you see the difference there? It must be difficult what you're going through. I'm here for you. Now, you know, for me, learning is what this is all about. And what I'm doing is hopefully just kind of challenging this information I'm learning to you guys. But for me, that is brilliant. Because it had me thinking, I have done that. At least they're not looking for that. They're looking for you to be there for them. And as I said, I've made a point not to talk about this whole kind of lockdown thing. I've just done it. But the reality is people will be in very challenging situations, financially, emotionally, maybe in families, etc. What Brené Brown was saying, which I do agree, don't say, well, at least, because they don't want that. 9 times out of 10. What they want is you to possibly say, do you know, that happened to me and I'm here for you. Now, as I said, I'm training to be a therapist, and all of these skills I'm just like soaking up as a sponge, because I realise these are things that can make a massive difference, not just in your life, but somebody else's life, in a relationship that maybe you're in. And you are saying, well, at least you got this, at least you got a job. Gosh, I bet that's been said quite a few times. All right. Right, let's move to schemas. What is a schema? All right, it sounds like a dodgy geezer, but it's not. What is a schema? Let me give you an example. A 4-year-old child, all right, learnt that a donkey was something that had 4 legs, a tail and a nose, all right? It learned a schema. A schema is like a shortened version of anything which might come across as complicated. So in other words, the child has learned it's 4 legs, a tail, and it's got a nose. That is a donkey. However, when that same child sees a dog, what does it call it? A donkey. Why? Because its schema fits what that describes as a dog, but it's not, it's a donkey. Do you see what a schema is? So a schema is like a blueprint, I suppose, of what you would simplify as understanding what something is. Now, this is where often stereotypism comes in. Does that make sense? So if you see a guy walking towards you, he's got a suit on and he's just about to ask you a question, you're probably thinking, oh, he's probably got maybe a good job, probably well educated. Do you see how schemas work? And you could flip that round, dare I say, stereotypes when it comes to racism. Maybe a person of a certain colour fits into a schema. Maybe a woman fits into a certain schema. Can you see what schemas are? Now, the reason I'm saying this is I believe that we have been brought up with these schemas. Now, your formative years are between 0 and 8. So as you're growing up, you're learning about schemas, you're learning about your beliefs, your values. All that happens between 0 and 8. Okay, that's what is learned. Now, on top of that, you can change what you've learned, but your values and beliefs are fixed at that point between 0 and 8. Now, your schemas are built in that area. And I kind of pose the question, is your schema holding you back? Do you have a set of kind of patterns, just like the donkey, the tail, the nose, the legs, etc., which meets a pattern? So therefore do you see? Because if your schema's wrong, you're going to have a problem. Because you will constantly say, well, we're in this situation, so I can't do this. We're in that situation, we can't do this. Can you imagine what your schema must be like compared to someone like, I don't know, Richard Branson, for example? I don't think they'll be the same. I think there will be, obviously, the standard, well, we know what a dog is, a cat is, etc. But his belief systems, what he believes he can achieve in his future schema, is going to be a lot different possibly from some of yours. So I want you to start looking at what your schema is, and does it need adjusting? With all the things I talk about, we just start looking at what possibly needs changing. Because if you don't change, nothing else will. I'm a coach, as you know, and I do a lot of coaching with clients. And I spoke to a client 2 weeks ago, and I said to her, listen, you're complaining about all these things that are going on, but you must change. And however you do that, I don't know. You've got to do what suits you, but you've got to change. And you can't just keep repeating your schema. Here we go. Yeah? Your schema, your pattern of behaviour. For example, when you do something in a certain way, if it fits your schema, you feel comfortable. Someone asks you to do something which you're not that comfortable of doing because it doesn't fit your schema. Does that make sense? When you meet your friends, they fit a schema that you then defined as your friends. Does that make sense? I want you to start thinking about this. And I've really been thinking a lot about this and challenging myself to think about, well, what is my schema? And schemas can be changed. But a lot of it is down to you and how you can deal with it. Okay? Boom. Okay, guys, I hope you have enjoyed it. This is part of my study, part of what I'm aiming to be, which is a therapist. I mean, enjoying my journey. But These, I hope you're enjoying them, but they must be connected with action. And you've probably heard me say many a times, the best thing to do is the right thing, the next thing to do is the wrong thing, but the worst thing to do is nothing. So if you kind of, after listening to this, turn it off and think, oh, it was all right, that was okay, or give it a like or whatever, but you do nothing about it, it will just sit there. And invariably what happens, something that happens to you. So let's just kind of do a kind of summary of what I've spoken about. I've spoken about the importance of empathy. This is about people around you. 3 types of empathy. Cognitive empathy. Like I said, you're more likely going to see that in the workplace. It tends to be a bit of an oxymoron. In other words, 2 things that tend to collide, because when you talk about behaviour, that's about emotions and feelings, etc. Cognitive tends to be quite logistical, etc. So the 2 in themselves tend to kind of link, but in a very jagged way. That's why at work you tend to find they're supporting you, and all of a sudden they're saying, well, when you're coming back to work, and it's like, wow, what happened there? Yeah, so it can be defined as being quite cold, but that's what tends to happen in a cognitive empathy environment. The next one that's important is emotional empathy. That is when you are connecting to someone and you are with them, but do you know what? 9 times out of 10, you're connecting so well because it is your problem, and your problem then overtakes what their challenge actually is. Like I said, of a child, it's classic. Yeah, it's emotional empathy. If there's something, oh, what's going on, darling? And you know, and how many times at funerals you've seen people shed a tear? Now, obviously, it could have been about the actual person that's gone, but sometimes people shed a tear because it reminds them of when their mum passed. Do you see? So that emotional empathy is good, but you can see where it can overtake the actual issue of that person and it becomes about you. The one you've got to really work on, guys, is compassionate empathy. It's about finding your ground, that middle ground, and being careful not to sway too much either the cognitive side or the emotional side. What I like about it and what I read about the compassionate empathy is about taking action. So, you know, when you put your arms around them, say, look, don't worry, I'll make that phone call. That's where I think compassionate empathy comes in. Looking at your schemas, guys, just think about it. Yeah, think about what are the things that you do without thinking about it. There's a part of your system, I've read this as well, brilliant. It's called your autonomic system, yeah, which runs in your body, and it's pumping my heart at the moment, yeah. Yeah, autonomic system, and it's nervous system, autonomic nervous system, that's it. So my heart is pumping now, and I have no idea how it's doing it. All I know, I'm pleased it's doing it, but all I know is that my heart's pumping, all right? So you could put this into that category of that subconscious, where you don't have to think about it, you don't do anything about it. I think a lot of us are running our lives in that autonomic mode, nervous system, where we're not even thinking about anything. We're just doing and saying the same things over and over again. All right, boom. Guys, thank you so much. I hope you have enjoyed it. Oh, I'm on the radio with Natalie Ward. Guys, I don't know if you've had a chance to listen to us. We're on a Sunday morning from 10 to 12 on our Salsa Soul radio. Guys, please just type in www.ossr.com. There is amazing things going on, not just the salsa music, there's chat shows, there's also soul music, there's some great DJs. I think in this time we're in, having positivity is very important, and I think and I believe OSSR brings that. So guys, we're on there on Sunday between 10 and 12. We have a great guest by the name of Chris Easy. He's an American guy, and he will be talking about, he works in a school, he's a coach, and he's going to be talking about fitness and health, but he wants to talk about politics. He's into his politics, and I want to ask him some questions. And guys, please ring in, because I want to know what is now going on. Is Trump still there? Is it whatever? Anyway, I think it's going to be fascinating, because someone from there has that ear and that eye of what is going on. Obviously during the lockdown, I have mentioned it, but in the States, just from what I see, it seems to be pretty bad out there. But how bad it is, find out on Sunday morning between 10 and 12. It's going to be amazing. I'm really excited about it. As I said earlier, guys, go to YouTube, type in Orange Online Learning. All of these videos will be on there. Learn as much as you can, and just really, like I'm always stating, it's not about getting through this situation, it's about getting from it. Guys, thank you so much for your time. I hope you have enjoyed it, and have a great weekend. Take care. See you soon. Cheers.